Swadikap, hello everyone, Kasit Piromya once again. This week or this time I would like to touch a bit on the political philosophy of the Thai people. But before going into that, let me recall a bit that for the last few centuries, Thailand or Siam, like everyone else in the developing world, was very much influenced by Western thought thinking, political know-how, and the concept about justice, human rights, and the rule of law, and so on. And at times then we have forgot then what was our political philosophy. Was there any Thai political tradition and thinking and so on? And lately, there has also at the same time been reaction to Western influence on the Thai thinking about political setup, rules of law, governance, and so on. So would it be possible for the Thai society to go back to its roots and try to, I think, combine the modern Western thinking with the Thai political thinking so that we can move the Thai society forward with confidence and without the inferiority complex that everything that we do, we set up is based on Western thinking. And in this sense, I just would like to go back a bit to the Thai political thinking. I think it came from, two strain of thoughts or two schools of thoughts. One is the Hindu tradition, and second is the Buddhist thinking. The Hindu tradition has very much to do with, I think, what I could term the Teva Raja. Deva means the heavenly beings or the gods. Raja means the king. So the Hindu concept of a king is the god-like king, because the king or the man or the king gets the mandate from heaven, from the gods and so on. So he is or she is the representative of the gods on earth. And since he or she is the representative of gods on earth, he has the legitimacy and he has all the power to govern the lands and the people and the resources. Everything belongs to him. And then he conducts the power and so on behalf of the gods in heaven. So that's one strain of thought that at times, even throughout Thai history, a lot of kings picture themselves as getting the mandate from heaven. That is because of the Hindu influence. But on the other side, there is this Buddhist thinking about Dhamma Raja as opposed to the Deva Raja. What does it mean by Dhamma Raja? It means the righteous king, or the king that conducts himself and governs himself by the rule of Dhamma or the moral precepts. So the king must be a man of high morality and must think and serve the people. And he does not have the absolute authority over the people and to act in any arbitrary manner. His conduct must be in the confine of morality, of ethical standard. He himself must be of high moral personality. And whatever he does is to dispense with the justice and happiness for and on behalf of the people only. So this Deva Raja, God King, and Dhamma Raja, moral king, is very much has been influencing the Thai political thinking. But at this point in time, with the Western influence, we talk so much about the rule of law. But the rule of law is not enough. It must be governed by ethical standard or good governance or moral democracy or moral capitalism. So in that sense, the Western concept forthcoming from Greek and Roman and Christian tradition and so on, at the end of the day, also say that whatever the absolute power that a king or the emperor has, still he has to think about the moral principles. And I think this is very pertinent to the modern day politics, whether in the United States, in Europe, in Russia, in China, or in Thailand, that I think political power, according to the rule of law, is not enough. Each of the leaders, whether it's president, king, sultans, or prime minister, must be governed by the moral principle, or in the Buddhist term, the Dhamma. And I think this is what we have to, talk more in the Thai society to revive, the concept of righteous king. And then it doesn't mean king in that sense, but it means anyone who has the power to rule or to run the country. So the word king could mean the prime minister, senior officials, political leaders, and so on, that whatever they do, they have to think not only the rule of law as stipulated in the constitution and the civil code and the criminal code and so on, but they have to think about the moral precept and moral principles, whether from Christianity, from Judaism, from Islam, or from the Buddhism. Is not very much different, because what the law or the moral law say is that you shall not kill, shall not steal, shall not, be intoxicated, shall not commit adultery, and all of this and so on. And to serve God is to be a good person. And the definition of good person doesn't, the interpretation, there is no differences among various religions and so on. So is it about time now that we in Thailand, and I think in the global arena at large, that we bring back these moral principles? And the moral principle is more about, not about the rights, the fundamental rights, but it's about the fundamental responsibility of a person to the society, of a son to the father, father to the son, of a brother to the sister, and so on, and for the citizen to the society as a whole, and the society or the state, the one who holds the state must have also that moral responsibility to the citizens and so on. So it's about time now, I think, in the Thai society, because of so much corruption, abuse of power, distortion of news, fake news, lies, outright lying and untruth and so on being uttered by political leaders. It's about time that we should take stock and go back to the moral principle, and then we try to, educate the younger generation, and at the same time the leadership must be guided by moral principle and to act in a moral, responsible manner. And in that sense, then I think we could move the society forward. And we can relate ourselves to our own philosophy that leaders must be guided by moral principles. And we can combine that moral principle with the Western concept of human rights, of liberal democracy, with governance and so on. They are not in conflict, but they are in line. But lots of time we only talk about the legality of things without being aware of the morality of things. I think this is the time that in the Thai society we could, go in the direction of the Dhamma Raja, moral king or moral leadership, and not simply the Deva Raja, which means absolutism, majoritarianism and so on, and the abuse of powers and so on by the rulers. So there is still time for Thailand to take stock of itself and reset itself with the moral principle. So a few thoughts for you. ขอบคุณมากครับ สวัสดีครับ